All right, Valhalla Group. This is part two with Jonathan Rieth talking about his time overseas as a volunteer medic. During the break, him and I, we're going to touch on one thing I think everyone likes to talk about. Be like, John mentions that if you look in the videos, it's usually him, the only one fully kitted up. And why was that, John, other than obviously awesome operator fucking pictures for Instagram and Facebook?
Yeah, so basically it was specifically just for Instagram. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's the thing, guys. When you guys go to these cool pictures or cool places, you need to make sure you are kitted up. You have as many patches on, including the ones I make. So fucking shameless plug. Um, as many pictures and patches that you can, and yeah, that's pretty much you need. Always upload pictures because if you're not, no one believes you, and then you're stealing valor. I guess I don't fucking know. But what's the real reason, John?
Yeah, honestly, man, I wanted to come home with all my pieces and parts in the right place. And you know what, man, just again, people give me crap sometimes about you're being too cautious and too safe, and I'm like, man, how many times have a bullet or something come whizzing by my head, and I'm thinking, at least I have my helmet on. You know what I mean? There was I mean, you don't know who's the good guys and who's the bad guys in these neighborhoods. You don't know. You go walking a block up to, where there's a little corner shop that sells 5 things, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go get a Pepsi for the 18th time today. Well, maybe that's the 18th time that someone decides they know your pattern and they want to kill you that day, or you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So for me, I always wear my body armor. I always wear my helmet. I'll never forget one morning we were in the mosque that we were using as our CCP, and we had a critical patient, and it was me and a couple of Iraqi medics, and we're working on this guy. I'll never forget. It was kind of like a dust stormy, foggy kind of morning, and all of a sudden I just heard the whoosh right over my head, and I look up and I'm like, there's no way someone fired, and that round went through the building from that window to that window without hitting. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you're going to be in a really awesome shot. So I'm like, whatever, just must have been a stray bullet from something. So working on our patient, and all of a sudden I hear another shoo, right over my head. And I'm like, I'm kind of crouched down, still working on the patient, and I'm thinking, well, at least I have my helmet on. Like, and if they're going to hit us, they're going to hit us, right? And then we, a few more rounds come hit the side of the building. We managed to get our patient packaged up and in the ambulance and out. But afterwards, all the Iraqi medics were like, they're asking me where do they get helmets, so they want to buy helmets now. And I'm like, yeah, well, because it's probably a smart thing to do. I don't know. I just I always erred. I would always err on the side of caution, man. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times. We'd see an alleyway, and you'd think, that probably doesn't look safe, we probably shouldn't go down, only to find out there was an IED in it. I mean, there was a time that we were going to, I wasn't with the truck that day, but they were going to go down an alleyway, and everyone said, no, they got the heebie-jeebies, so they didn't go down it. A couple days later, 2 people are walking, they step on a 200-pound IED.
I think that's...
And actually... I have video of that. Yes, I have video, and that video has not been released, but I have a video of me helping the Iraqis pick up the remains of the person that stepped on the IED. There's literally just a little bit of a torso left. So it's like, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's just, I don't know, to me, why not? If you have protective gear and you're in that hostile of an environment, why would you not have your protective gear on?
Yeah, and that goes back into like basic medical, first day of EMT or even EMR, TCCC classes, whatever it is. Scene is safe, BSI, making sure you have your PPE on, obviously. So, that's something pretty basic as well. And not only that, man, is probably a lot of guys in the group can attest to what's up with that muzzle awareness going on downrange with these guys. It's definitely not the best,
No, it isn't. A lot of times the guys are talking to you and gesturing, and they're pointing their gun at you like it's their extension of their finger, and they're not doing it to be like aggressive. It's just because that's how they're just gesturing with their hands. Dude, there's always a muzzle pointed at you somewhere, because it's not because they're mad at you. It's just because they just have horrible like discipline with their firearms. The only group that would make an exception to that, there's only one group in the whole region, was the PAK, the Party Azadi group, which is a political faction in Kurdistan. You have the PUK, PYD, PAK, so on and so forth. Party Azadi group, when they would come to our training classes, we told everybody no loaded weapons are allowed in the training room. They would come in, it would with military precision, just like they were in the U.S. Army. They would take their magazines out, they would clear and chamber the rifles, and they have their senior check to make sure all the chambers are cleared. All guns were then put on safe and stacked against the wall. I mean, they were phenomenal. But they were the only ones. Every other group, man, they're talking and gesturing with their guns. I mean, I just think it was like something like from a really bad comedy movie where if someone had a bayonet on their gun and you were like, "Hey, can you slice this loaf of bread?" They would just reach over with a bayoneted rifle and cut the bread for you. I'm exaggerating, but it was almost that bad.
But that's the thing, is I don't think you are exaggerating, because anyone who's been overseas, anyone who's been overseas knows, like, dog, you pretty much, other than the Western world, weapon safety is not high at all. And even the European countries, man, these guys have no fucking idea. A lot of them, like they have fucking no idea, man. It's fucking crazy. It's crazy how ignorant to it they are, man.
I mean, we've treated people where the first priority is like, look, I know you're bleeding profusely, but I still need to get the rifle out of your hand, bro.
Yeah.
Like, give me your rifle, then I'm going to finish treating you, because right now, when people lose blood, when their mental status starts going, one of the stages of that inevitable stages of shock and altered mental status is combativeness and confusion. The last thing I need is a dude who's got lost a bunch of blood and getting real confused, maybe even combative, and then the only thing he knows, because of his muscle memory, is to, I'm in that like fight or flight mode in the worst way. Yeah. I got to fight to stay alive, and he starts pulling a trigger in a room of doctors and EMTs or civilians, essentially. Like, we don't need that. So, yeah, it's just a different mentality completely. Absolutely, it is.
And it's good you touch on that, man. Is just like the altered mental status of being in treating these guys, combative, and especially, and this is maybe a little bit of a stress, is you have people who are diabetics, and they're not diagnosed and whatnot, so you got someone who hasn't ate for a minute, and then they're all jacked up, like their mental status is out there. So there's so many different variables of that you have to deal with. I personally feel that you got to deal with, and you don't know, like, beyond combat.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, like it's just like mental disorders aren't diagnosed in Iraq. That the frequency that they are diagnosed in America, and while that's another conversation, it's still man, you got someone who's a fucking schizophrenic, bipolar, whatever their mental fucking disorder, they're not, having the privilege of medication here, I guess, and they're all fucked up, so it's just so much shit that, beyond the combat and trauma that you guys probably have to fucking deal with that, doesn't get displayed in the videos or even talked about at all.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's tough too. It's like, there was a lot of, I kind of wish there was a lot more, in some respects, recorded, just so people could see that, there's so many different sides and there's so many different elements that, you have to contend with. I mean, everyone's seeing like the highlight reel, so to speak.
No,
you don't get to see the boring stuff. You don't get to see the, kind of the grueling admin stuff. You don't get to see the, like the patients that are more or less, I don't want to say mental situations, but there's a lot of other stuff that we had to deal with too, in conjunction with the trauma.
Yeah.
You know, for sure.
Did y'all ever, after liberating Mosul and the civilians were allowed to, be humans again, essentially not indentured servants or slaves? Did you deal with any Stockholm syndrome with those guys or gals, like the families, or especially Iraq in general? You go from Saddam's regime, the stronger Saddam regime of of the first Gulf War, and then kind of a lull to him, flexing his chest again in the late '90s, early 2000s, or publicly at least. Then the Americans coming, and then Al Qaeda, and the Fedayeen and all those terrorist groups, and then the Americans, kind of repelling that to American rule, to now a new Iraqi government, to then ISIS and ISIL coming out, and or whatever the fuck you want to call them, to now it's the fighting between the Kurds, the Sunnis, the Shiites, and as it's always been. But at least Saddam can kind of, obviously he's a fucking asshole towards the Kurds. Kind of kept it, no one really cares about this is terrible to fucking say, but I'm going to say it. No one cares about domestic abuse as long as it's done in the house, but as soon as you get it out of the house, everyone fucking gives a shit. As terrible as it is to say. Like, how are these fucking people, man? Like, was there a Stockholm syndrome, or are they just so used to, like, okay, this guy's telling me where the fucking piss and shit. Now this guy's telling me where the piss and shit.
It's hard. I don't personally have a good, I'm not like the litmus test because, I don't have that good before and after. I can't say, well, my experience during the Saddam region with these people was like this, and now when I go back, it's like this, But what I can say is, kind of what I picked up on were, a lot of the Iraqis didn't like Saddam, and they were glad that he's gone, but they were really unhappy with the current government. And I said, well, what about, the civilians and ISIS and stuff? I think everybody was smart enough, even if they sympathized even remotely, I think they were smart enough to say how terrible ISIS was. Oh, they're so bad. They're gone. They're good. They're gone. It's so good that they're gone. I think everybody, even if they sympathized, even 1 ounce of them sympathized with them, they were smart enough to say and reject them completely, because if they didn't, they would have been ostracized. They would have been arrested. They could have been killed. They could have been killed for it.
Yeah.
So there was a guy in the neighborhood that was kidnapped, taken from his family, forced to work as a cook for ISIS, but he got away from them, and he got arrested, and they were going to kill him. And he told them everything. He's like, look, I'm telling you everything. I was there for 4 days, and I got away. And he said it was really you guys were really, really close when it happened. This was at the very, very tail end, so they didn't have enough power to make me stay, so I fled. And I hid for a couple of days, and then you guys liberated my neighborhood, and I came back home. And, all these people in the neighborhood were validating the story. So just even people who were kidnapped were at risk because, they can't rule out that they weren't a sympathizer and stuff. But big picture politically, I feel like most Iraqis spoke that they didn't care for Saddam. A few of them said he was good, but most of them said they didn't like him. A lot of them were really unhappy with the government in Iraq now, which is understandable. The other thing I thought was really interesting is a lot of them spoke really ill of Barack Obama.
It's funny because when I was in Kosovo, I talked to a couple of them about the ever changing political climate in our country, and in Kosovo, they view Bill Clinton very high. They have statues of him. They have Bill Clinton Boulevard. They have pictures of him randomly. So you would think that they have, when the election, because I was there a little bit before the election happened, that there would be this overwhelming support of Hillary Clinton, and there really wasn't. They're not like the biggest fans of, and I think maybe because it was attached to Obama, maybe a little bit, and maybe they don't like him. They're pretty indifferent. But what I do think it is I think it comes down to kind of, I you can talk ill will about foreign policy in the United States all you want, but it's like, these Iraqis know when it makes them feel safe when they probably see Americans coming around, and they probably like, the Americans, they give out, more water and more food and chocolate and dumb stuff, and ISIS probably takes from them, and their government probably takes from them. So it's essentially a fucking charity case. And when President and plus all the fucking bombings that happened with Obama talked a good game of like peace and love, but this dude's dropping more bombs than fucking anyone will ever know, which is funny about people getting upset when Trump drops a bomb, but that's a different conversation. But it's funny,
yeah,
man.
But Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, that's fucking. We can have a part 3 for that, which I don't even want to talk about that.
Exactly. But the reason why they, I see where you're going. I mean, like there was, talking about the U.S. political climate. They didn't. The reason why they said they didn't like Obama is they said because he was weak. That's what I heard. And they liked Trump, they said, because when Trump became president, he immediately said, I'll give support. And they said that immediately there was an influx of U.S. military equipment, supplies, money, and it wasn't just like, hey, Iraq, here's a bunch of extra, AR-15s, good luck. It was, here's more advisors, here's more trainers, and we're going to help you finish this off. And he said, they said it was just a much, much more aggressive approach from the U.S. military.
And that's what I'm scared about, man, is that, okay, obviously the Mosul was run, ISIS is down to God knows how many people in Iraq. I'm really hoping Trump doesn't fucking take the fucking training wheels off, because I've had buddies who've been back to Iraq since 14, and then they noticed around 16 it got more aggressive, and my buddy pulled a deployment from middle of 16 to 17, so this is when Mattis comes in to office, and he's just like, dude, it just got amped up, man. Once January 1 hit, like, it became a different deployment, man. You became, and he never fought in Afghanistan. This is his first deployment, so he never fought in Afghanistan, because I'm old enough for Sangin and, some of the earlier battles of early 2010 and the 2010s and whatnot. And he's like, dog, like, my NCOs were telling me that, dude, this is what it was fucking like when they were in fucking Marja and Sangin and all that shit. And, I'm just hoping we keep it, keep the pedal to the fucking, the floor. Because I'm one of those proponents of, if we do this, if we go into Iraq, we're going to be here for fucking 100 years because we have to fucking swap this whole ideology. So before we go in, is everyone cool at that? And that's how I feel. I was like, I have no problem with not being in Iraq. I have a problem with us being there and then not playing fucking the right game. Like, we're going to be here for fucking 50 to 100 years because we have to fucking raise a whole civilization out of, like, ass-backwards fucking ideologies. So we have to essentially work through generations of fucking inbreeding, personally. But
one of the groups,
I'm hoping we keep with that.
I think the Kurds are the key to that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and I'm so glad that and fucking for all you fucking Purple Dragon people out there, this isn't OPSEC, it's on the fucking Google, is that they've built Ibril, an embassy up there, and I think that's fucking one, key for Kurdish independence, and two, just like where we could see us kind of pushing, the future of Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, the mentality in Kurdistan is so different. I mean, it's such a, it really is. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's part of Iraq, but I mean...
But, dude, it's so different.
Just culturally, culturally, just everything is so different. I mean, dude, I walked around in a Reveal T-shirt, and, dude, I'm covered in tattoos and stuff. I go to Family Mall. I mean, it was like a family place, like, literally. Yeah. And, Dude,
everyone,
I've never
I
felt so
haven't,
safe in my life.
yeah, I haven't been there, so I talk off based on what I've read and based off guys like you. And a buddy of mine was like walking around in fucking kit when he was working as a corpsman over there in like 2006, and they're like, bro, take your shit off, we got you, it's fine, you're safe here. And a lot of them speak English, and I was where I live in Missouri. I was in a more urban neighborhood, and I was talking to this guy. He's like, yo, I'm a Kurd, and I was like, you know what, I got I got that vibe from you just based off the way he was talking. He was a lot different, and he was even Muslim too, which I didn't, I wasn't the big thing over there. He's like, yeah, man, it's like Muslims, Christians, I don't fucking give a fuck, like, and just like,
Dude, yeah.
yeah,
Dude, it's such a different environment, like, just everything across the board. And there's a lot of similarities. There's like little things you're like, oh man, this is why you guys fight all the time. Like, this could be easily rectified.
yeah.
Politically, they have corruption just like anybody else, and all those things. But at the end of the day, culturally speaking, when you live in Erbil, there's Ankara, which is the Christian section, and there's churches everywhere, and but they're also right next to a mosque, and it's like, okay, there's Jews that live there, there are Yazidis that live there, and everyone gets along. I mean, basically, it's kind of like, hey, don't really like go out of your way to like mess with my shit, and I won't mess with yours. And then everyone, we can all be happy in between. As long as there's like it seems to be, as long as there's an understanding of mutual respect, then people get along. And I'm sure there's tensions, and I'm sure there are things in certain areas, and it's people are people. But like I said, I felt safe. Getting in a cab, I felt safe. I mean, majority of those cab drivers are Peshmerga because they spend 10 days in the front line and 10 days back at home, or 20 days back at home, and then they go back to the front line for 10 days. And what do they do when they go home? They're cab drivers.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's I saw something. One of the big veteran, fucking Black Rifle Coffee. The guy was a cab driver and he was a fighter all at the same time before he came to America. And what does he do when he's fucking in America? He's a fucking cab driver,
Mm-hmm.
And then thank God Evan Hafer fucking picked him up using his talents and skills for something better than driving a cab and getting fucking disrespected by fucking college kids. But
yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, man. Like, how many times did I get in a cab and people, like, we were talking and they would I would say I'm a Peshmerga doctor because they don't really have a word for like medic.
Yeah.
And then they would people would be like, oh, they wouldn't let me pay for cab fares, or I have the word, I have Peshmerga tattooed, like, on my hand, going from my thumb to my wrist.
Yeah.
And, I did I have it there because it's like, remembrance of, the time I served, who I served with, the people that have lost their lives. It's, that's my remembrance of that time. But, like, the downside is, like, I try to hide it in Kurdistan because I go to pay for a sandwich and people would see that and they wouldn't let me pay for a sandwich, or they won't let me pay for this, or they won't let me pay for that. I'm like, it's not why that's there. Like, I'll still pay the, 80 cents for the sandwich guy. It's not a big deal, But
yeah, it's more for
that's
you.
That's just different, man.
Yeah,
but the hospitality is different.
I kind of I've been told, at least, it's kind of equated to, I wouldn't say not so much how we treat our veterans now, because there's a weird, like, backhanded respect of GWAT veterans, but maybe probably the guys who came back from World War II, because the Vietnam vets obviously got treated like shit when they came back, and
sure,
in Korea, Korea kind of gets lost, because a lot of those guys who fought in Korea were also World War II vets, because only 6 years later between campaigns. But
right,
I think that'd probably be the best way to put it, man. Is like, is probably the way they treat y'all over there, like the way we treated our World War II vets when we came back, or they came back.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty fair statement. I mean, we got treated. I mean, Middle Eastern hospitality is really unlike anything you'll see
Oh yeah,
I think
it's
in most other
nuts.
places in the
It's
world
fucking.
to begin with, especially if they know that you're there helping to defend their country. I mean, man, I'll never forget. I don't remember who I was with. The guy I was staying with when I first got there, and we were having dinner. And this was my first time back from the front line before I had met Pete and Derek. And some guy was just, at a barber shop, and we're all talking, and we're outside eating sandwiches, and the owner of the barber shop, and we were all shooting the shit. And basically, he starts yelling at the youth that this man has to come from his country to defend you. Why are you not joining the Peshmerga? Why are you? He starts yelling at the youth, and it was, but it's like, whoa, bro. I'm like, you don't have to do that. Like, everyone's got their own minds to make up in life. Like, it's okay. Like, but it's just different, man. Like, it's just a really different atmosphere, different culture. Like, but he was that appreciative of me coming over there that he felt that he needed to like say stuff like that. It was just different. It's just really different overall. But no, it's good though, man. I really hope that they get things kind of figured out, man. I really hope that the tension between Kurdistan and Iraq can get resolved. I think Turkey is going to be the one that kind of helps them resolve that tension. I think Turkey's aggression towards Syrian Kurds, which will ultimately spill to Iraqi Kurds, I think that will be the piece that aligns the Kurds in Iraq against a common enemy yet again, to be honest with you.
No, freaking...
Because...
especially with, like, what's his name, Aragon, openly backing ISIS. I fucking hate those guys, man. I had to work with them a lot in Kosovo, so I'm even more biased, and I'm part Iranian too, so I probably have some, like, inherent genetic bias towards, the Turkish over there and whatnot, so... my grandmother...
Yeah, I mean,
my grandmother is very, like... She's liberal, very liberal, and she's like, Patrick, I need to tell you something. I love all people, except the Turks. I do not trust the Turks, and I do not trust the Arabs. And when you go to Afghanistan again, you cannot trust them. Trust me. And I'm like, okay. She's like, and also, I hate India. It's a very dirty place. Do not go there. I'm glad I went. but other than that, I love all people. And I'm like, God
but other
damn.
Than that.
Yeah, and it's, she's fucking 70. She's born over there, I don't know. It's just funny because she's like, she'll like be really like, oh, Donald Trump is a racist. I do not like him at all. But man, if I see a Turk, oh God, I'll slit his throat. Obviously, over exaggerating that, but that's what I hear in my head. That's
sure.
That's what I want to hear. Just 75-year-old old woman.
Yeah, I think Turkey's going to be kind of. I think that can be the force that kind of drives. I think it could backfire because their blatant aggression against threatening to go into Manbij even though that there's U.S. forces in there and like just all their bullshit.
Yeah.
And then the Kurdish Peshmerga were talking that if Turkey waged a full-scale invasion into all of Rojava, that they would send people over, and then, even though Iraq is upset with the Kurds, there's a chance that Iraq would say, okay, you can get mad at the Kurds, but technically that's still within our border, so no. And then I think that's going to be, I think that's going to, I don't know if it'll actually ever escalate to that point, but I think obviously the potential is there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like the enemy of my enemy is my well, no, I'd be the exact opposite or whatever. But, yeah, it's just crazy to think like the best thing that could happen for Iraq is an invasion by an ally of NATO, like an American ally. So it's a fucking. It's a thing to wrap your head around, man. It's a fucking conversation and a half. I'll tell you that much.
Well, and I think that's what kind of that it's kind of like you're kind of trying to loop all this back a little bit. Like when people keep asking about, like, oh, what's next for GRM, like, talking about all this complexity, that's why it's really hard for us to pin down this one specific thing next, because there's so many different players, so many moving parts, and that battlefield, it changes. Politically, everything's changing so fast, so rapidly. We may find a project. Let's say we found a project to help medically train or medically, provide support to, a small group of minorities in Turkey, and we have the blessings of the Turkish government and all those things, and everything's all happy. It doesn't mean that, when we get there on the ground, we could do it. It might all get canceled in flight, or let's say we want to go work in Kurdistan. We're in northern Kurdistan. We're near Dahuk, and we're helping people up there, and then Turkey decides to invade. It's like, oh shit, and I'm not just saying even, not just picking on the Turks. I mean, that could happen kind of anywhere, but, obviously, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, that whole little triangle right there, it's a hotbed. Then you can add in other countries, that are in massive issues right now, like Yemen, but that's even more of a hot mess than, Syria, to be honest with you, because you got the countries divided by the Yemen government, which I forgot what their actual, proper name is, but you have them, and you have the Houthis, you have Al-Qaeda and the Canadian, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. ISIS controls a section of Yemen, and then the Saudi coalition is controlling everything kind of coming and going. You know what I mean? So who do you support there? Obviously, obviously you're not going to support ISIS or Al-Qaeda, but I don't honestly know enough about the Houthis to know that they're even the bad guys. I mean, maybe, what if they're the real freedom fighters and they're trying to do good for their country? I don't know that. I mean, I haven't investigated it enough to know. But what I'm saying is, with the war in Iraq with ISIS, it was very black and white. Everyone knew who the good guy was and the bad guy was. A lot of these other countries, where there are battles going on, those lines are really becoming more and more gray. So, to be on the good side or the bad side, it's harder to say. And yeah, if you're just treating just civilians, it's a little bit easier to be on the side of the right because you're only treating civilians. But a lot of these countries are so war-torn, the only way you're going to get near the civilians is with a military of some sort. A lot of it, you're not going to get close to anything where actual people are being injured unless you're with some sort of military body because they're near the fighting. So then again, are you with the right military? Are they the good guys? Are they the bad guys? Are they going to turn their backs on you? Are they going to kidnap you even if they are the good guys? You see what I'm saying? It becomes so convoluted so fast. So yeah. As an organization, we have to have, you really have to have your information pretty down pat. I mean, you have to be pretty damn solid on what you're going to do before you pull the trigger, especially when you're adding in volunteers to the mix.
Yeah, especially for
people are just volunteering.
Yeah, especially for you, because this is you're the one fucking doing it. You're one of the founding members and whatnot. So it's your name is on this, and you go and support the wrong group, and then you're you're an international freaking, where is it? You're up in Hague, whatever the freaking war crimes court is, and you're on stand for something.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. It's as much as we may want to support the humanitarian crisis in Yemen, we just can't. And sometimes you have to leave it for groups like the UN and the World Health Organization to handle. Now, the problem with that is no knock to those groups, but they're big. They have so much red tape, and I've watched those guys just battle through the simplest of tasks to try to get something done because of all the bureaucracy and red tape. And one of the things that GRM was good at doing, part of the reason why we formed, was to be able to do the actions that we needed to do directly and quickly and get the results and help people directly with the utmost speed without a lot of red tape. But that works in some cases. It doesn't work in every case. Yemen, that might be better suited for someone like the WHO and the UN. It might be a little bit of a slower response, but they'll get a response. someone like GRM can't really be effective in there. However, there's other battlefield situations like Mosul where we were arguably probably more effective than the bigger groups with all the red tape and stuff. There was one group that was building a hospital. By the time the hospital was built, the battle had moved so far away, no one used the hospital because no one wanted to drive 45 minutes outside of the battlefield to get to the hospital. Because it took them so long to build it. By then, the battle was pretty much over. It's cool. I'm glad you guys built it, but
that's something else, man. Fucking, that's just nonsense. That just seems like big organizations at their best. Like, hey, we'll be there in a second, and then like, hey, what happened to the battle? Be like, well, what the fuck were you doing?
Well, that's what I'm saying about like they're kind of like their red tape. They said, okay, we have security protocols, which means in order to build the hospital here, it has to have, T barriers of this height, and they have to have, 2 rows of this, and then we have to have barbed wire and HESCOs, and we have to have all this stuff built as the compound, and inside of it, this has to be done this way and that way. And I'm like, it's going to take you so long to put all that up that literally the battle will be over. Now, you're hedging their bets a little bit. Maybe they thought that ISIS was going to put up way more of a fight and the battle was going to take a lot longer, and that hospital would have seen more use. And if that were the case, a lot of, they, on numbers and on paper, that would have looked like a huge success. But it wasn't the case. The Iraqi army moved in fast and hard, and they didn't slow down. They just kept pushing harder and harder. And the result was the hospital never got the use as much as it should have been used because the battle was over.
So I got about 5 minutes left, man. What do you? So what's next for you specifically? Are you waiting on GRM? You think you're? I know you said you're in paramedic school. What do you think is your next thing, man?
So for me personally, I one thing that this whole experience in life is it humbled me in a lot of ways, and I've actually learned to live in the now so much and worry about the future, but not as much as I used to. So I guess what I mean by that is, right now in front of me, my priority as paramedic school is graduating paramedic school and graduating well so I can provide quality care to people that, I come in contact with. So that's kind of like my main focus right now. It has to be, right? GRM is there as well. We're still pushing forward, but, Pete is still in Iraq. Derek is living out of Missouri, driving a truck around the U.S., and I'm in paramedic school, and we're still talking and working and trying to come up with some game plans and ideas. And Pete's kicking around a bunch of stuff, and we keep going back and forth on yay or nay on this, that, or the other thing. But so for right now, my main focus is just getting through paramedic school and doing that well. After paramedic school, I would like to revisit something overseas. At what capacity, at what level, I don't really know. I think, the world's going to be in a much, much different place come November when I graduate paramedic school. So I don't want to worry too much about that now because, we all know nothing stays the same for more than a week in the Middle East. So,
yeah, no, that's definitely the best way to put it. Well, we'll definitely try to help you. Obviously, with your experience prior to Iraq is pretty solid with medical experience, but we'll definitely do our best through the group to get you some work, possibly overseas. They're always hiring medics.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Ogre is a medic. He's a paramedic, worked as a contractor overseas, so we can do what we can, man. But honestly, just the experience of y'all talking to the group. A different experience over a similar situation, even though it was a different organization with GRM, was amazing to have. We really appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts here at the Valhalla group and whatnot. But
yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, man. It's a big honor to be on the show.
Nah, man, I'm glad, we're obviously a small market, building up every day, but I'm personally glad that we're able to get y'all's story out and, hopefully someone picks it up, sees the show. Each episode we post gets a little bit more feedback, and we got it on all the different things, gaining more subscribers and all that stuff. So it's good, man. It's definitely helping us out, and we're glad we can help you out because, I know Austin said there was a lot, and you mentioned it, the dishonest media of you say something and then, Don Lemon, you didn't say what Don Lemon likes, so it doesn't get posted.
Yep.
And then,
Exactly.
yeah, so try to have, is this biased? Maybe it is. I don't know, but you know what? It is what it is, and it's just another perspective. And as us as humans, now we're getting a little bit deep into it. We just gotta make our own fucking decisions. But at least it's getting out there, So
Yep.
we'll see.
Absolutely.
But yeah, guys, that's all. We got a two-part, like I said, two-part episode. Gonna post this up as soon as possible. Definitely make sure you check out all the previous episodes. If you want to hear a good story as well, we got Austin, Ogre, and I will be recording this weekend as well. So we'll have another episode up for you guys again. If you haven't, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Helps us grow, helps the channel grow, and helps the page grow, and helps us get more jobs for you guys. Because if we can get recruiters start coming to us and saying, hey, we need, which happened the other day. I had someone fucking shoot me a message, one of my buddies, who works for a company in the HR department, and said, hey, I want this. Can you guys find me anything? And I said, give me a second. None of you assholes fucking got back to me. So until then, like I said, with my guest tonight, John Rieth, and I'm your host, Snowflake, and we will see you the next time.